Alright, so welcome once more to another video in our YouTube channel. So in the previous video I ended with equation 6 and I told you guys that there is a second method we could use to solve this problem. That method ran through my mind when I was solving using this first method. At the end of the day, due to I don't know, maybe too much computations here, the method went again, so I had to pause the video and just upload it like that. Then while doing the uploading process, I remember the other method, so that's why I want to show you this other method before we move on to question 7. Alright, so this other method, like I said in the previous video, we convert this complex number 1 here into we convert this real number into a complex number. So 1 is the same as e raised to the power 0 I theta, right? Because the modulus of 1 is 1 and the argument principally is 0, because it's tan inverse of 0 over 1, which is 0. Now we need to add it to e raised to the power negative 2 I theta. Okay, so now I'm going to bring everything back to the trigonometric form. E to the 0 I theta is the same as cos 0 theta, okay, plus I sine 0 theta, and then e to the negative 2 I theta, I think we saw it already. Here is it, so no need to rewrite it again. So plus everything here. Now this is what I'm going to do. I will bring cos together, so I'll carry the cos and first of all put here. Then for the signs, I'll just factorize the I. Alright, so make sure you're working together with me and make sure you have this exact expression. Now we use the factor formula. Cos A plus cos B is 2 cos A plus B on 2 cos A minus B on 2. Your A is 0 theta and your B is 2 theta. So if I take 0 theta plus 2 theta, I get 2 theta. When I divide by 2, I get theta. So I'm going to have 2 cos theta. Now cos again of A minus B on 2. 0 theta minus 2 theta is negative 2 theta. Divided by 2 is negative theta. But since the cosine is an even function, we can remove the negative sign and we'll just write theta without any problem. So if I add these two things, I just get 2 cos theta, which is 2 cos squared theta. Now let's come this way. We have the I. Alright, we have the I. Now, what is sine A minus sine B? It is 2 cos A plus B on 2 sine A minus B on 2. So 2 cos and then sine. That is it. So cos A, we need to add 0 theta to 2 theta. Then we divide by 2. We are just going to have theta. Then next we need to take 0 theta minus 2 theta, we divide by 2. We are going to have negative theta. Okay, so you realize that from these two terms 2 cos theta is common, right? Because there's a 2 cos theta here. So if we factorize the 2 cos theta from both terms, we are going to have 2 cos theta. Now from the first term, we are going to be left with cos theta. From the second term, we are going to be left with I, the sine of negative theta. Sine of negative theta. But since sine is anyway sine of negative theta. Okay, now look at this. This cos theta was actually the same as cos negative theta. I was the one who removed the negative sign. So this is the same as 2 cos theta, right, times e raised to the power negative theta. Because remember, cos A plus I sine A is e raised to the power A I theta. That's 2 e raised to the power IA. Yes, so you see that the argument here is just negative theta, because this negative theta is here and the negative theta is here, and the modulus, if in fact you were asked, the modulus will be 2 cos theta, right? Because it's just a real part. That's the modulus of the complex number is 2 cos theta, and then the argument. So this complex number is basically in the form r e raised to the power I alpha, where r is the modulus 2 cos theta in case you were asked, and then negative theta is alpha, and alpha is the argument. So we see have negative theta. Another method came through my mind again. Anyways, let's just proceed. If I continue giving methods, we might sleep here, guys. Let's proceed to question 7. All right, so moving on to question number 7. Question 7. Here we are. So the question reads, given a truth table below, here is a truth table. The truth values of A and B are respectively. So let's see. Let's start with B. So B is a result when we take F or F, right? Because this is P or Q. So you should note that the truth value of P or Q is true if either of them is true. So whenever P or Q is true, then P or Q will be true. Okay, again, if P, the statement P or the statement Q is true, then the statement P or Q will be true. So you see, in the first case, both of them are true, the result is true. In the second case, though Q is false, but since we have P is true, it means one of them is true, at least the result is true. In the third case, though P is false, we have Q to be true, so the result will be true. Now in the fourth case, both of them are false, so the result will be false because none is true. So B here is false. Okay, so we first want to eliminate option A and option C, because A and B are supposed to be, the first one is supposed to be A and the second one is supposed to be B. So since option B, since the truth value of B is false, then the second guy here has to be false. So option B or option D will be correct. All right, now let's go to A. This time around, this is an implication, a conditional statement. Now when is P implies Q true? In fact, when is a statement implying another statement true? Anyways, let's read it normally. A true statement implies a true, because we are now moving from P or Q back to Q. A true statement implying a true statement is true. Perfect. Now a true statement, can a true statement imply a false statement? No. So the result here is supposed to be false. So A is false. So both A and B are both false. So option D is correct. But now there is an ambiguity in this question, and there is something that is not right. If you look at the last response here, now if you want to read it, you are going to say false because B was false. So you're going to say false implies false. False implies false is true, it's not false. All right, so for us to take option D, then this guy here has to be corrected to true. But anyways, for the purpose of MCQ, we go with option D, but with the condition that this last statement here was supposed to be true, because definitely a false statement will imply a false statement. So it is true that a false statement will imply a false statement. So false implies false is true, because a false statement will normally imply a false statement, right? So but can a true statement imply a false statement? No. So a true statement implying a false statement is false. So this A is false. So anyways, like I said, we are going with option D, provided this is corrected. For the purpose of MCQ, we choose the closest answer. We just ignore this and we go with option D. So number 7 is option D. No big deal here. Option D. Now question 8. Question 8. Let's see what we have. Question 8, we have let f of x be equal to this, the floor function or the greatest integer function. What is the integral from -2 to 2 of f of x? Okay, let me see, how will I really explain this? Anyways, let me see, I'll try my best to explain. It's not really easy to use a machine and you are limited to so many things. Okay, now what is the greatest integer function? The greatest integer function is just a function that takes any integer to an integer that is less than or equal to the function, specifically to the biggest integer that is less than or equal to the function, which means if I take the greatest integer of 1.6, it will give me the biggest integer, but that biggest integer has to be less than 1.6. The result is 1, because the integers that are less than 1.6, we have 1, we have 0, we have -1, and all the rest. But what is the biggest of them all? It is 1. So in essence, we are rounding down. Okay, now let me try another one, then I'll give you an exercise to tell me in the comment section. What is the greatest integer of 9.8? Is 9, right? Because 9 is the biggest integer that is less than 9.8. Now next thing is that the greatest integer of any integer is that integer itself. Let's talk about negative numbers. What is the greatest integer of -2.6? We need to take this to what? To the biggest integer that is less than -2.6. So first of all, that integer must be less than -2.6, and it has to be the biggest. Now, which are the integers less than -2.6? We have -3, -4, -5, and all the rest. So what is the biggest of them all? -3. So this is my question. Tell me in the comment section, what is the greatest integer of -0.7? So what is your answer? I'll be waiting for your answer in the comment section to be sure that you have understood what I've explained concerning the greatest integer function. Now let's focus on the problem. Let me see what we are asked to do. We are asked to find the integral from -2 to 2 of f of x. Alright, so how do I integrate the greatest integer function? First of all, I'll try to draw the graph. I'll try to draw the graph of the greatest integer function. Let me see, not to waste much of your time. Calculator, graphing. Yep, so let me just draw the graph for you. All right, don't want to waste time here. I think floor function, this is it, floor of x. Voila, here's a graph of the greatest integer function. Now let us analyze together. We said that let's begin with positive numbers. The greatest integer of 0.5, for example, is 0, right? Because 0 is the biggest integer that is less than 0.5. So any number between 0 and 1, where 1 is excluded, the greatest integer of that number will be 0, because any number between 0 and 1, 0 is the biggest integer that is less than that number. So that's why you see here a horizontal line on the x-axis, which means that no matter the value of x in this interval, the greatest integer will always give you 0, and if you are 0, then you are on the x-axis. Now once you arrive 1, the greatest integer becomes 1, right? Because the greatest integer of any integer is that integer itself. So when x is equal to 1, the greatest integer is a function y, which is 1. Now when you are between 1 and 2, the greatest integer will be taking you back to 1. Okay, but when you arrive to, once you are equal to 2, it skips to 2, the greatest integer becomes 2. So for example, the greatest integer of 1.5 is 1. So you see that when x is 1.5, what is y? Y is 1. When x is 1.9, what is y? Y is 1, and all the rest. But once x becomes, wow, what is this making like this to me now? Once x becomes 2, the greatest integer is automatically 2. Alright, I'll just end with 2 because we are integrating from -2 to 2. So you see that these are basically horizontal lines. So if you are between 0 and 1, the graph is y equal to 0 because you're the x-axis. If you are between 1 and 2, the graph is y equal to 1. It's a horizontal line, y equal to 1. If you're between 2 and 3, the graph is what? Y equal to 2. Now let's go to the negative values. If I look for the greatest integer of -0.5, for example, what do I get? I get -1, because -1 is the biggest integer that is less than -0.5, right? What are the integers less than -0.5? We have -1, -2, -3, -4, and all the rest. What is the biggest of all these integers here? It is -1. So any number between -1 and 0, the greatest integer is -1. Now if you're between -2 and -1, the greatest integer will be -2. right? Because if you take something like negative 1.5, what are the integers less than negative 1.5? We have negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, and all the rest. Now what is the biggest of them all? It is negative 2, right? So that is it. So if you are between negative 1 and 0, the function is negative 1. If you are between negative 2 and negative 1, the function is negative 2. So that's going to help us to easily integrate. Alright, so the integral from negative 2 to 2 of the greatest integer, this is actually the denotation, I think it's a floor function, voila, of the greatest integer of x dx is equal to, we are going to split it, right? Now let's go back to our intervals. So we begin from negative 2 right up till negative 1, then we go from negative 1 right up till 0, then we go from 0 to 1, then we go from 1 to 2. Alright, so we begin with from negative 2 to negative 1. Now from negative 2 to negative 1, what is the function we are integrating? We are just integrating y equal to negative 2 because the function is constant, negative 2. Now from negative 1 to 0, it is negative 1, right? From negative 1 to 0, we are integrating negative 1. Then from 0 to 1, we are integrating 0, right? Then from 1 to 2, we are integrating 1. I think that is it. From 1 to 2, the graph is equal to 1. From 0 to 1, the graph is equal to 0. From negative 1 to 0, the graph is equal to negative 1. From negative 1 to 2, the graph is equal to negative 2. So I think from there we can easily integrate. So let's integrate. If I integrate negative 2, I just have negative 2x, right? From negative 2, so this negative 2x is actually from negative 2 to negative 1. Now let's add it to negative x, go and integrate negative x from negative 1 right up to 0. So then now for this 0 here, we just have 0 because everything is 0. Now for 1, we have x from 0 to 1. Let's put negative 2 outside. I'm going to take negative 1 minus negative 2, right? Upper bound, negative 1 minus negative 2 is the same as negative 1 plus 2. Then plus, I'll put negative, so it's plus. Now this negative 1 here, I'll put it outside. Okay, negative 1. Now I'm going to take the upper bound, which is 0, because this negative sign goes outside and I'm just left with x, replacing x with 0. So I have 0 minus negative 1 is the same as 0 plus 1. Then we need to add the 0. Then we add, here we have to take 1 minus 0. Okay, 1 minus 0. I'm taking my time to explain so that at least, because this subject is very bizarre, we want to have more A grades this year. When I add these two things, I get 1. When I multiply with negative 2, I get negative 2. When I add these two things, I get 1. When I multiply with negative 1, I get negative 1. This man is 0 and this man is 1. Now negative 1 plus 1 is 0, so the answer is equal to negative 2. Alright, I never saw the answer there, so there's no problem. There's no answer. We move on with our lives. So there is no answer here. Option 8, no answer. Question 8, okay, wait. Option none, no answer. Alright, let's go to question 9. Tell me how you feel about this. Just tell me how you feel about it. Question 9. The root mean square value of sine x in this interval is, we just have to apply the formula. Root mean square of any function in an interval AB is the root of, what is the mean? The mean, we have to take 1 over b minus a Then we have to integrate from a to b. So we integrate from a to b of the square, root mean square of the square of the function with respect to x. That is root mean square. So in this case, you clearly see that the interval is 0 to pi ln 4. So the root mean square will be, what I need to do is I replace, right? I replace b with pi ln 4 because that was the upper bound. I replace a with 0. I replace a with 0. I replace b with pi ln 4. I replace y with sine x. So this gives me sine squared. That's the answer. If I want to simplify this pi ln 4 here, since the denominator 4 will go up to the numerator, so we have 4 over pi. Okay, we now need to integrate this. Then we raise everything to the power half, because that's the definition of the index of a square root, right? So this is what we have. We can also remove the square root of 4 as 2, alright, out of the integral, and then we have this. Alright, so if you look at this, which option is correct? We'll go back. I'll just write my question 10 first before we visit question 9. Option C. Yeah, option C is correct. Look at option C and look at what we have here. So question 9 is option C. Question 10, that is where we are. The Cartesian equation of the curve whose polar equation is r equal to 2a cos theta is, okay, Cartesian equation. So let's know the conversions. X squared plus y squared is r squared. Cos theta is equal to x on arrow, and sine theta is equal to y on arrow. So if arrow is equal to 2a cos theta, what does this mean? So we are converting from the Cartesian plane or the polar plane to the Cartesian plane. Those are the conversions that we have to know. There is no time for me to be deriving. Alright, I believe you know such already if you have done the topic. What is cos theta? X on arrow. Now cross multiply. We have arrow squared to be equal to 2ax, right? 2ax. But what is arrow squared? Arrow squared is x squared plus y squared. Subtract 2x on both sides, and we basically have this x squared plus y squared minus 2ax equal to 0. If there's any question, comment section is open. So x squared plus y squared minus 2x, option A. Option A. Alright, so we have come to the end of this short series. We are basically doing, for the first video I did question 1 to question 6. Now I started with question 6 again. So question 6, question 7, question 8, question 9 and question 10. So I'm doing 5 videos basically. So check out the channel for the next 5 videos. See you guys in the next video where we are going to continue with question 11. I'm just making the videos to be short as possible so that you also easily understand the questions in pairs of 5s.